Our presentation will cover the motivation, engagement, interests, and attitudes as struggling readers. Strategy 1 for lack of motivation and engagement. Reading role models. The teacher will tell students that many people love to read, and special speakers will be coming in to tell them about the books they enjoy reading. Tell students you'll be bringing in 2 reading role models a month. Contact local police officers, firefighters, city council members, newspaper writers, radio or TV personalities, sports stars, or even players from local sports teams. Encourage guest speakers to talk about all the different types of reading they do, not just stress on book reading. Have t-shirts that say "I love reading" or something similar for guests to wear during the presentation. Encourage students to ask the speaker questions. Strategy 2 for motivation and engagement. Reading survey. Tell students that you are interested in their views about reading. Explain to students that you will be giving them a survey to better understand how they feel about reading. Use the Motivation to Read profile, have each student complete the survey, and collect them. Score them by assigning a numerical value for each item, 1 point for the first answer, 2 points for the second answer, 3 points for the third answer, and 4 points for the fourth answer. For some questions, the scoring is reversed. Recode the answers that have an asterisk next to them on the MRP Reading Survey scoring sheet. Calculate students' self-concept as a reader and the value they place on reading. Use the results to tailor motivational and interventions for individual students as well as for the whole class. Strategy 3 for lack of motivation and engagement, the thumbs up or thumbs down. Tell students their opinions and reactions about the books they read are important and they will be able to share their opinions with the class. Have thumbs up, which is good, and thumbs down, which is not so good, templates printed out. Have students cut out the picture of the hand that best describes their view of the book they have recently read. Ask students to write the title and the author of the book, a 1-sentence summary, and the reason for their rating. Tell students that all reasons will be considered valid as long as they can justify their opinions. Strategy 4 for lack of motivation and engagement is you'll like this book. Your recommendations as a teacher can motivate students to read a book or story. Set aside a few minutes each week to introduce and share several books or other reading materials. The goal should be to create an interest in the materials and to promote reading. This can be done by bringing in an object that relates to the material, highlight an interesting part from the material, share something about the topic, event, or main character, ask an engaging or interesting question. Strategy 1 for negative attitude towards reading is attitude surveys. Tell a student you want to understand how they feel about reading, so they will be completing a survey, the Elementary Reading Attitude Survey for younger students, and the Rhody Secondary Reading Attitude Survey for students in middle school and high school. Have students complete the survey independently as you read the statements to them. Ask students to respond with the answer that best describes how they feel. Score the surveys using the scoring instructions. Strategy 2 for negative attitudes towards reading is picture book songs. Explain to students that many popular songs have been made into picture books. You can show students examples such as The Ants Go Marching or This Old Man. Identify a picture book students would enjoy singing and write the words of the song on sentence strips. Teach students to sing the words along to the tune of a recording. Listen to the music as you show the illustrations of the book. Strategy 3 for negative attitudes towards reading is using humor. Set up a humorous literature center in your classroom. Tell students this area will be devoted to fun reading. Stock this area with joke books, riddles, humorous poetry, and books of wordplay. Include books with a variety of reading levels. Introduce students to the types of books in the Humorous Literature Center by reading a portion of one of the books. Invite students to read in this area during independent reading time.
Students may have limited reading interest. For the first strategy for that one would be an interest inventory. So you would choose an interest inventory that is appropriate for your students, and then you would duplicate and distribute the appropriate interest inventory. You are able to look those up online. You could find them on Google or anything. After you distribute those, you would explain to your students that you would like them to complete this and give them time to do so while in class. And after they do complete it, you'll have them discuss their interests with their classmates. One way to go about this is to divide the class into groups of 3 or 4 and have them share their responses, and after they have time to do so, one group member will be able to list the interests shared during their discussion. They could take notes on this, they could try to remember it in their head, whatever their preference may be. So another way to have the students discuss their interests would be to share with the entire class instead of in groups. And as they are going through listing their interests, you would encourage students with similar interests to share their knowledge about the topic. After this is all over, you would be able to find books and other printed materials about many of the topics of interest of your students. You would want to administer an interest inventory every few months because students' interests may change. The second strategy for this would be book talks. So book talk is a brief talk about a book with the purpose of enticing others to read it. To do this, you can schedule a regular book talk every few days. You could read books about a theme and share them with the class before beginning a unit. You could share several books written by the same author, share different versions of the same story. You could also read the book and prepare a short talk that will make the students want to read it. You could relate the book to a personal experience, which helps a lot of students want to read a book. You can use quotations or excerpts from the book to help the students get interest in it so they can see what the book is really about. You could use props whenever appropriate. You could dramatize the book. You could prepare a script from a scene from the book and have students perform it. So then for the third strategy would be using popular culture, which I really like this one a lot because this will make students really want to read the different materials that you choose. So for this one, you would ask students for ideas that are of interest to them to use as reading topics. So first, you would want them to list their 3 favorite types of media, and after they've done that, you can have them list their favorite shows, websites, or stations. And then you can go even further and have them list their favorite actors, sports heroes, TV characters, video games, that kind of stuff. And then have them share their interests with their classmates. And then you can split them into the groups of 3 or 4 again, or you can do the whole group discussion. You can ask students to volunteer their interests with the class, to share their interests with the class if you do decide to split them up into groups of 3 or 4. And then once this is all over, you can collect books and magazines about the media of interest of the students. For the fourth strategy would be item of the week. So when students have read a good book, story, or article, item of the week will allow them to share their reading with classmates. You can develop guidelines for sharing and take time to teach them how they would share. And then provide a place where students can sign up to share, where they would write down their name, the title, and the author of the material, so that way you don't have multiple students sharing the same book. And then once 3 to 5 students have signed up, you would meet with the students individually to hear what they want to share, and then after sharing, have the class vote for 1 or 2 of their favorite items. So you make it a little more fun, so that way students want to share and want to essentially win over their classmates. So then we have low confidence in reading ability. So the first strategy for this one is reader self-perception scales. So you would give students a survey that determines how they feel about reading, and then read the directions of the survey with students, and then collect the surveys and use a scoring sheet following the survey to determine each student's reading self-perception. And then you can use this as a way to begin conversations with your students who are less engaged to better determine how you can help them be more engaged. Second strategy is a we can chart. So you determine specific reading skills and strategies to teach students over a 3 or 4 week period and list them on the we can chart. So you read a list to the students and have them contribute additional things that they want to learn, and then make a copy of the chart for each student and have them place it in their reading folders. And then you explain to your students that you will be working with them on the skills and strategies listed on the chart. And after you've taught a skill or strategy, have students write the sentence, "We can," blank, which would be the name of the skill you're monitoring. And then frequently remind your students of the things they've learned how to do. I think this is so important because sometimes, students will forget that they can do things and they are able to do things, and they want to look at the negative, but you have to remind them of the positive. The third strategy is cushioning. So tell students that no one can do everything, learn everything, and be the best at everything. Explain that people often cushion themselves when they are facing a difficult task. You want to describe the word cushion to them and then give examples of statements that are meant to cushion their egos. Provide students with examples of your own cushioning attempts, and then introduce a difficult skill and have students practice cushioning statements, and then explain that cushioning is an important skill to learn and that they need to be in charge of building their own confidence.
Hey guys, so I started with section 5 of chapter 1, which is reluctant to set goals. Strategy 1 is the daily reading record. Some readers keep track of the number of pages they read in order to keep track of their reading. This is used to guide the students to accomplish their learning goals. Inform students they can keep track of their reading with a daily reading record chart, which is a system to record how many pages, chapters, stories, or books they have read. Ask students to make a graph that reflects the record and explain how the graph is made. So you would put the pages read on the y-axis and the days of the week on the x-axis. This assignment can be done for however many days, how many pages you want to read in a day or a month or a week or however you want to do your assignment. Ask students to record the number of pages they've read each day. Make sure to keep copies of the graphs and folders for future reference. Encourage students to increase the number of pages they've read with each graph in order to encourage improvement in their skills. An alternative choice to charting the pages is having the students chart the amount of times they have read. So strategy 2 is genre charts. And it's important to inform students that it is common for good readers to also keep track of the kind of books they read in order to challenge themselves with a variety of books. Many readers sometimes get in a rut and they get bored of reading in general because they're reading the same types of books. So it's important to encourage the students to venture out and pick new genres that they might be interested, that they never thought they would be interested in. And in order to do this, you can hand out a book record chart to the students, which will inform them to keep track of the types of books they've read within the next few weeks. Show students how to use the chart by informing them where to put their name, the date, the authors, the titles, and the genre of books. You can show the students where they can find the genre by grabbing a book and just telling them that they have to look on the spine of each book, and that will tell them what they're reading. Have students complete their own charts, so then after the few weeks, have them reflect on their book choices and see the types of books they read and if they repeated any, and have them set new personal goals for the next week and the next chart. So strategy 4 is purposes of literacy and life survey. And you'd use this activity to show students how often reading is used in everyday life. They use reading at home, at school, at practice in the car, looking at signs or menus. It's important for the students to realize how much reading really does affect their everyday life. So it's important to share a list of reading you did in one day, one weekend, and discuss the purpose of literacy in life. It's also important to get students to brainstorm other types of reading that might be done and to make a list of these for students to have. And have students fill out the survey at home or over the weekend and then have them share their individual surveys in small groups when they come back so they can get opinions and ideas from other class members. And then post the chart in the classroom for students to be reminded of the purposes for reading in everyday life. A few practice and reinforcement activities that can be used are to remind students that all kinds of people set goals, like athletes, celebrities, anyone they look up to, everyone sets goals. Remind students that it is important to set goals for life and also to set learning goals. Explain to students that working towards a goal is called the flow state. Have students create daily learning activities on an index card for each day of the week. At the beginning of a unit or lesson, ask students to learn and then encourage discussion of the learning process. Have students interview in the next higher grades to get an idea of what they might be learning next year. Praise students who have set learning goals and have achieved them, and also encourage students to praise themselves and each other's. So the example strategy that I chose to show you guys is the daily reading record. And as you can see, you would put the pages read on the side, which goes all the way up to 2 through 20, and then it has every day of the week. So this chart would be specific for how many pages you read in a day. So say the child read 10 pages on Monday, he would fill the bar all the way up to the 10. Then Tuesday, if it was 8 pages, he would fill it up all the way to the 8, and so on and so on. And there are multiple charts here, so they could use it for the few weeks that you want to make the assignment or however long you want to make it. So last but not least, the research article that we chose is called "The Case for Holding Students Accountable: How Extrinsic motivation gets kids to work harder and learn more. This article was written in 2018, the spring of 2018, and it basically discusses how students need to be held accountable for their actions, and that actually boosts their motivation to perform better, because if they understand how their actions affect their learning skills, they are more eager to extend their learning into different fields and subject matters.